Hello, and welcome to First Geek 411's book club. Did I forget for a second that I'm in charge? Yes. Today we are talking uh, Critical Role, Bell's Hells, What Doesn't Break by Cassandra Khaw. I forgot to pull it up. I'm Shadeen, and with me I have Emma.
Hi. It's good to
And
see you.
and Cameron.
Hello, hello. I'm excited for book club.
Yeah.
Yay.
I just remembered I took a picture of a page so I could come back and find it for quote talk, and I forgot to go and do that ahead of time. So I'm doing that right now. No big deal.
Mood. Feel that. Relate to that.
Stalling for time with all of the intro information. You can find us at all of the places. We are First Geek 411 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Come chat with us on our Discord server or shoot us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. Watch live on our Twitch every Monday night at 6:45 Mountain Time and find all our videos over on YouTube. And don't forget to check out our sweet, sweet merch at our Redbubble store. All right. So we are talking. I am just going to call it What Doesn't Break from now on because it is a long title. Um, in What Doesn't Break, a regular young woman gets caught in the crosshairs of a struggle between a band of heroes and evil overthrowers and is killed. But she wakes up hanging from a tree with no memories of her life and a voice in her head. Being undead and with mysterious powers from the voice, Laudna is outcast from society everywhere she goes, though she longs for nothing more than connection. Laudna goes through many failed attempts to find acceptance, experiences loss, and eventually discovers the voice in her head is not a friend. But despite her many mistakes, as she relearns how to navigate the world, Laudna eventually finds somewhere or someone to call home.
That darn Delilah. Curse you, Delilah.
Alrighty, let's start with our 3-word reviews.
I loved it.
It was good.
Fun, spooky, great.
Yes, correct. Fast, fun, spooky.
All right. I think that we have talked about this on the podcast before, but to reiterate for everyone, what is our previous experience with Critical Role and Bell's Hells specifically?
I started interacting with Critical Role through Bell's Hells because I knew about them before, but I didn't watch anything until Bell's Hells started because I didn't feel like really starting anything that was several hundred episodes long. Which makes sense. That's the big terrifying thing for a lot of people with Critical Role specifically.
Yeah, big same.
Yeah, mood. Feel that. I have since fallen off the bandwagon because I've been watching Dimension 20 on Thursdays with a friend. And we'll eventually get back on the bandwagon when I have an excuse to watch 4-hour-long episodes while doing things like laundry. But I love Bell's Hells a lot. They're a great team.
For me, I got into Critical Role. I want to say it was like high double digits of campaign 1, like probably around episode 70, 80. And I like binged the whole thing. And so I feel like I caught up in like low 100s. Is like that was how long it took me to like get actually caught up. But then I was like perpetually always like 2 to 3 weeks behind because I was on the East Coast and was not able to watch live. And so like I can't watch live in Central Time, and I definitely couldn't watch live in Eastern Time, just with work schedules. And so, but yeah, so I went through all of campaign 1. I watched the first like 40 episodes of campaign 2, and then fell off for Mighty Nine. And then for campaign 3, I watched episode 1 and had not watched any of it until about a month ago, because of this book, wanting to go and make sure that like I understood what was going on. And so I've been watching through the abridged, because they were a really good workout length. And so that's been my like gym ritual, is to do like 1.5 abridged episodes. And so,
those are great for that kind of activity.
Yeah. So I think I'm in episode like 13, 14-ish right now.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. For me, I had been wanting to get into Critical Role for quite a while, but as has been previously stated, it is wildly daunting. But I decided to hop in during the summer of Abria because that was a limited series and did not seem scary, and I couldn't fall like super duper behind on it. And then fell super in love with Critical Role, started watching campaign 1, which I am still in the process of working my way through. And I had been watching Bell's Hells live or like staying caught up for quite a while over the past few months because of life and schedules. I am not caught up anymore, but slowly trying to catch back up with that one again.
Relate to that.
And of course, watching The Legends of Vox Machina on Prime as well.
Yeah. I forgot to mention that. Yes. Caught up on that.
Yeah. That's pretty easy to catch up on when it's a animated series.
Yeah. It's a great way to digest season 1.
Yep.
All right. So with those experiences, would you say that this novel is targeted towards fans, or is it accessible for newbies?
I think it's a good in between. It's a good both in my head. Because if I were going into this like fandom, if you will, with no context of Bell's Hells, I think this would be a really great introduction to one of the characters. And like it really gives a good sense of who she is and like sort of what drives her and motivates her. Because then we also get, spoilers, the introduction of Imogen at the end, because they started the campaign as friends, like they knew each other already, going into the campaign of Bell's Hells. But then at the same time, as a viewer of the season, having seen a good chunk of the campaign already, a lot of the stuff in here is like stuff that we've either only touched on very briefly in the campaign or not at all, and it really dives into a lot of her past. So I think it really plays to both sides of like, you get new content about the character as a returning audience person that's fun and really dives into that one character, but then also as a new audience member, you're not expected to really know anything going in.
Yeah, I've literally been thinking about this because when I got my book, someone reached out to me about it who is like doesn't know Critical Role, is my impression. And so now that I have finished it, I've really been thinking about like what I'm going to tell her of like about it, because she asked for like my review once I finished. And like I struggle with this because I feel like this is for the fan that has watched The Legend of Vox Machina but has not watched Bell's Hells. Of like I think the reveal in this of Delilah being the patron is like the perfect thing of, you've just finished campaign 1, like, oh no, she's back. But like, even with like, she's established as a villain throughout this, but like, but without having seen that, I feel like it loses a lot of that punch. And then, like, that being said, as someone who knew that was the case, like, it really made this book lose a lot of its punch when, like, that's supposed to be this big reveal. And, like, knowing that going in, so I don't know. Like I said, I feel like this is for the fan that hasn't touched Bell's Hells yet, I think is maybe where I'm at. Like if you're interested in Bell's Hells, you should read this and then go into campaign 3.
See where you're coming from. I think it could go either way, because I think on one hand I agree the reveal is like pretty major, but on the other hand we do get a big reveal like that in the campaign as well. And reading this book, there's just, if you are familiar with Bell's Hells, then there's just a lot of dramatic irony going on the whole time, where you're like, Laudna, come on.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And it's like a different kind of tension that is being built up when you do know what's going on. I think this would be maybe more for Vox Machina fans than Bell's Hells fans as well, maybe, because I feel like some of that backstory and stuff helps with the understanding of this story. But I don't think it's completely inaccessible for newbies either. Like, it's a very like self-contained story, though it is like pulling from different parts of the Critical Role canon and stuff as well. All that being said, this is not our first read based on a fandom that did not begin in novels. How do you think it compares to the other things that we have read?
So I went and pulled the list.
Yeah. Okay.
Just for the audience. So
go for it.
We've done, by my count, we've done 3 others, unless I missed one. And so we did The Ruby's Curse, which is Doctor Who, Children of the Nameless, which is Magic the Gathering, and then Heir to the Empire, which is Star Wars. So those are our other fandom reads that did not start as a book.
Yeah. I think is probably the strongest of the ones we've read, in my opinion, just in terms of like how compelling it was for me to keep reading, A, and B, how well it was written. Like, I felt it was very well written in comparison to a lot of these other ones. Like, it is, like Shanine just said, it is much more contained within like the pages of its own book, even though it does draw from a lot of the universe, because that's kind of the point. It is a bit more self-explanatory in ways. You don't have to know all of these things going into it. It's nice to know all of these things going into it, but you don't have to. So I feel like it's the strongest of those 4.
For me, I think this would be number 2. I think The Ruby's Curse for Doctor Who is still my favorite. Again, my complete bias for River Song is showing.
Yeah.
But like, the book about my favorite character is definitely much
shocker.
higher than like, I would not say Laudna is my favorite character in Bell's Hells, and so like, so that was definitely one of the places that like I struggled with this book. And while like I know I am much higher on Children of the Nameless than y'all are, this I think is a much better book than that one. Just in terms of what is going on. Like kind of going back to that, the discussion of the previous question of like, who is this for? Like, I could never recommend Children of the Nameless to non-magic people, like outside of like this book club setting, and even y'all are like magic like adjacent.
Yeah.
Like, whereas this, like, again, I could definitely see recommending this to some degree to somebody that's not super into the Critical Role fandom. So yeah, I think this is my number 2.
Yeah, I think I am with Emma on this one. I think What Doesn't Break is the strongest of the ones that we've read. And I think just looking at this list as well, I think What Doesn't Break is definitely the most accessible for non-fans. I think the Ruby's Curse, you like really needed to be a Doctor Who fan to like appreciate and even mildly understand what was going on. Yes, Children of the Nameless 100% need to be into magic to
Yep. Yep.
to be interested. I think Heir to the Empire maybe has a little bit of wiggle room for like major like sci-fi fans. You don't necessarily have to be a big Star Wars fan as long as you're like into space drama.
Get away with some stuff.
But yeah, I think and Heir to the Empire also just felt it was an older novel as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, so it is like a different writing style, but it is much longer and very dense.
Yep.
And this one was just like much easier reading.
Yeah. For tier list context from our all book club books ranked that we have done, Children and Heir of the Empire are C tier, and then Ruby's Curse is B. Is how those other ones shook out. That makes sense for us. So I don't want us to hear what tier because we're going to save it for the next time we do a tier list, but just kind of for context as we're talking about how we ranked those books.
That tracks.
I feel like this next question is more a shout out for me because y'all just showed everyone your physical books already. What format did we read? I had a credit for Libro FM, and I had no idea what to spend it on. And then remembered that this book came out, and it was narrated by Robbie Daymond, and that pretty much sold me. And also additional narration by Marisha Ray, Gray Delisle, and Laura Bailey.
I'm showing off the inside artwork.
Nice.
There's Pate and the hammer. Right. Yeah. Pate is MVP.
Yeah, I am super jealous of the audiobook after I saw the narrators. Like that sounds super cool. Yeah.
It was a wonderful listening experience. For the first like third of the book, I wasn't even sure if it was like a well-written novel or not. I just was like loving listening to Robbie Daymond. It turns out it was well written, so bonus there. But just getting to listen to Robbie, so good. He's so good.
He's so good.
All right. Thoughts on the world building?
a lot of the bigger world does kind of rely on your knowledge of Critical Role, but I think in terms of this book, a lot of it is sort of centered on Laudna's experience of the world around her. So there's some like forgiveness that's allowed for like not really knowing a lot about the bigger world and not having a lot of full-on explanation of it, because it really is a story of someone who goes from suddenly waking up on a tree to like not knowing anything to like wandering around and not really being accepted into whatever place they run into. So like a lot of it does come from a point of like we don't really know a lot, but that's not because things are undiscovered, it's because it's just this person trying to experience the world around them. So what we are getting is through her eyes and her like emotions and the things she is experiencing, which really then leans into her story a lot. So where it lacks in world building, it kind of helps support the story.
Really good point. I think that helps with the accessibility of the story as well. It's like they've been building out the world of Exandria for years.
Yeah.
But we don't need to know it for this novel because Laudna doesn't know any of it, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
She
that's
doesn't
kind of
know
what I
it,
mean.
you don't know it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of what I mean from what I said earlier. Of like, I feel like this is for the person that has seen The Legend of Vox Machina. Of like the Whitestone context at like the beginning of the book, I think is so important to what's going on there. Because like, if you don't know what's going on in that set of scenes, like it is super weird. Like just to like what is going on.
Yeah.
But like past that, I feel like a lot of it, and I don't necessarily mean this as an insult. It might come off that way. But like, I feel like a lot of the rest of it is generic fantasy settings of like generic small town, generic medium city, generic like, and I think that that's fine. Like I don't like the locations are not a character in this book. And so I think it's okay that is the case, versus trying to like flush out the hustle and bustle of all of the different places. But yeah, I don't. Yeah, there's not necessarily a lot of world building, and that I think that's fine.
I think I agree in terms of setting. Like we don't get a lot. I think where the world building comes into play is more in like the society and things like that. Which again, we're still getting from Laudna's perspective as an outsider. So we don't necessarily get a lot of details on things like that either, just trying to like pick up on things as Laudna sees them. With I can't remember the title of the person.
The exemplar.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's actually I was about to just talk about that too.
The most
Okay,
like the most what new no lawful good. The exemplar is a great example of a lawful good character, I think, in my opinion. That's the thought I kept having whenever she popped up. Is this is a great example of a lawful good character? Is someone who you want to hate, but you can also be like, yeah, I can see where you're coming from. Like, I can't exactly argue with that, but also like have some humanity. Come on.
And I do think that that's one of the strengths of Delilah, of the relationship between Laudna and Delilah. And like I know we've talked about this in various capacities before. Of like one of the challenges for warlocks is like are you signing your DM up for playing your patron for like a huge chunk of the campaign? Like, because like that's something. And so like I feel like a lot of times clerics kind of fall into this as well, and paladins to a lesser extent, of like you've taken an oath, you have like your order, or in this case you have your pact, but like is your patron involved? And like I feel like if that was the case for Laudna, this would have been a much less interesting book. But like having the patron be Delilah, who can spoon feed us, like her extremely biased view of the world, I think helps out a lot with the world building for people that aren't familiar with who is the lawbringer. Why is this word capitalized? Like,
Yeah.
And been having like, again, who we find out is Delilah being the one that's like coloring this, I think is a very good touch.
Right. What are our thoughts on the character development of Laudna?
A great. I mean, this just kind of goes back to what I've said before about this book. It's a great story of how she got to the point where we meet her in the campaign, which has been essentially from the point of the tree, which I am keeping intentionally vague for family-friendly reasons, up to knowing Imogen, which when she came off the tree, she didn't even know how to speak. So she essentially went through an entire like toddler growing stage, essentially. Which like isn't even really something that you would think about as an undead character. Like they had to like she went through a whole stage of like, I know I should know this thing. I know I should know how to do this thing, but I cannot for this insanely traumatic reason. And then going up to the point where she like denies Delilah because she's so mad at her for causing the tree to happen. And then slowly being like, okay, I will make a new pact with you, but on my terms. My terms. Because even now it's just like, ew, whatever that means. Like, it's so fascinating because it's like that character arc is still technically happening, but it's great to see like that moment of her sort of learning who the voice is in her head, how to like manage that and handle it and accept it, but then also want to fight against it. And I thought that was really intriguing because it's like she wants to do everything good. Delilah wants to not do that thing because Delilah is very self-involved. And then Laudna's just like, okay, I will like compromise on the fact that you exist inside my head, but I will not compromise on doing good things. And I think that's great. So I liked it. I gave it a thumbs up.
Yeah, I know we'll get to dislikes in a later question. This was like one of my least favorite parts of this book. And not in the sense that like it's bad, but in the sense that it is exactly a character's backstory leading up to the campaign starting.
Yeah.
Like, and again, I feel like that's just me wanting something. Yeah, it's again,
it's what you would expect for a backstory.
Yeah, not saying it is bad, but just like in the sense of like, this is exactly what I expected. This is like the exact like beat for beat, like, oh, she's going to meet the exemplar earlier on. Oh, this character's going to come back and there's going to be some moment of like, and that I think was my problem with the book. Again, not that the character development is not done well, but just that it, I think, struggled with being a prequel and the intent is to get Laudna ready for session 1.
Yeah.
And like that was the place that I struggled the most. To what Emma was saying, I liked what you're talking about. Like, I think it's really cool, especially post tree, like that early time period of her trying to figure out how to be alive again. I think is really interesting, and it's a really cool take on playing an undead character. And then even like once we get to the stuff where she's trying to like learn the power, there's times where it's like, is Delilah taking advantage of her, or does Laudna just not understand how to use her powers? Like there's some really interesting stuff. I wish that there was more surprises with her character development. Maybe that's like where I struggle with it. But like, and maybe also, again, maybe this is me expecting other things. We didn't Eldritch Blast nearly enough things in this book for me.
Eldritch Blast. We need more of that.
Like, yeah, of the person who loves blasting. Like, we did not Eldritch Blast nearly enough things in this book for me.
Fair. I can see where you're coming from. Like, her character arc was pretty well as expected. Nothing surprising, but I think I still enjoyed it because it was very much a loss of innocence story.
Mm-hmm.
With just her like coming to terms with what the world is like, discovering that it is Delilah who is in her head, but how all of this trauma still does not fundamentally change who she is as a person. Like, she has always been like incredibly loving and caring, and that didn't stop throughout the story. I like it.
Wants a friend. That's all she really wants is a friend.
I identified with that. Of like,
yeah, I feel that. Relate to that.
You're one of my people.
Like, yeah, I can understand that.
All right. What were our thoughts on Delilah as the villain?
A little bit more like, it sounds bad to say that I wanted a little bit more manipulation, but for knowing Delilah for who she is, and even if I were coming into this book as just having been someone who watched just Legend of Vox Machina, knowing a lot of the other things that Delilah has done as a character and how driven she is to really like essentially bring back Silas as her husband and all of the things she's done there. I kind of wanted to see a bit more of that, like especially in the early stages, like of Laudna not really being fully coherent, like pushing to make that happen, but at the same time, in the context of the fact that she is literally stuck inside an undead woman's head and having no real ability to do anything, it was like I could understand that maybe she was just exhausted and tired after being absolutely obliterated by Vox Machina, if you will. I just still wanted a little bit more, especially after hitting the point where Laudna calls her out after realizing that it's Delilah, and she just like shuts down and decides to pull back. Like, I wanted that to be a bit more impactful, but otherwise I'm like, yeah, it's a good character backstory villain vibe.
Mm-hmm. Maybe this comes into why I wanted more Eldritch Blasting. Of like, I feel like Delilah is always hanging the like, I'll take this power away, but like we don't ever really see Laudna use that power to like a consistent degree. Like there's extremely important beats where she uses power, but like she's not out here just like again blasting literally everything that moves or whatever. And as we find out, like Laudna's immortality is not tied to this pact. It's a separate thing. And so like it really feels like what is the actual bite to Delilah? At least from this intro perspective, where like Laudna's life is not reliant on her being able to survive with having to have this power. So like similar to what Emma said, like I definitely would have been much more interested to seeing more manipulation from Delilah, like dangling more power, dangling like more easy solutions or something like that. And I would have liked to have seen like more like, I don't know how you would have presented this necessarily, but like more power plays where like Delilah, is she trying to literally take over Laudna's body? Like things like that. I would have been very interested to see more of that. Again, I don't know how you put that in a story that's all about this character's backstory as she gets ready for session 1, but like I would like to have seen more of that. And then I will say I do feel like one of the places that this book struggled with me is that Delilah is not a physical threat. Just because she is someone that exists in Laudna's head.
Yep.
I feel like that made parts of this book feel like there was no antagonizer. Other than, everyone trying to kill Laudna. But like than the general
chasing her out of
means,
town with pitchforks and sticks.
Yeah. And so I do think that was another place that this book struggled for me. I would like to have seen more like direct conflict there, other than just it's us having an argument, but like I don't know how you would have presented that based on the characters.
I see where you both are coming from. It still does like surprise me that you wanted more manipulation when like every word out of her mouth was manipulation. I'm just like, more?
We wanted more action in the manipulation.
Yeah. And
it wasn't that we wanted more words, we wanted more action behind the words.
Exactly. I feel like a lot of times
there was a lot of talk, not a lot of acting.
Exactly. It's Delilah being like, I don't think you should do that. You really need to listen to me. Like she's like gaslighting Laudna like the whole book.
Yeah.
But like, but when it comes to like actually doing things to back that up, it's like,
your threats aren't very threatening, Delilah. We know what you can do. Now do it.
I feel like part of that was just Delilah like struggling to keep Laudna's attention. Laudna is like, I can have fun by myself over here. I'm fine.
With Pete.
Me and
like,
Pete.
Me and Pete, the dead rat with a raven skull on its head.
Delilah's just over here like, you need to listen to me. Stop. Please. Stop. So I think it was just an attention issue. I also was surprised to find Delilah like weirdly relatable a lot more than I thought she would be. Because she's obviously very evil.
Yeah.
She has unalived so many people.
So many.
Including Laudna herself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, she's unalived people
Several times.
literally just for fun.
Yeah.
Like for
Just
the
because
vibes.
she could.
Like she is an objectively awful person.
Yeah. There is no denying that.
And yet there were still times that she'd be like, Laudna, don't do that. People are gonna come after you. And I'm like, Laudna, I'm not
Don't
gonna
do
lie.
that.
She's right
She
now.
has a point.
Yeah.
The bad woman has a point, Laudna. The very bad woman has a point. You shouldn't be doing that. Just don't.
And like, while obviously everything that she has done in the past is so very bad, her reasoning was like kind of understandable.
Yep.
It's like obviously got very corrupted and blown way out of proportion, but like she loved her husband and had gone through difficult things in her life as well. And I'm like, do I feel bad for her? I don't know. It was confusing. All right. Favorite side character?
Ate.
Which feels weird to say because it's just Laudna.
It's just Laudna. But it's honestly, if you reframe Pate as a coping mechanism for Laudna, it's not the worst coping mechanism on the planet. She literally just made herself a dead rat puppet to have conversations with herself and like really like talk things out. She had some kind of thing to talk herself to have conversations with herself that wasn't the evil woman in her head. Like, you need some kind of outlet. And if that's going to be your outlet, then, like, it's not the worst outlet out there. So I don't blame her. But I also just love Pate in general. And, like, I also know, granted, that in the campaign, Pate actually becomes alive and his own, like, conscious being. So, like, knowing that happens later on down the road for this puppet is just so great because you see the beginnings of that, like, you see this thing that Laudna has put so much love and care into as like her own little positive support system, and knowing that then like comes around full circle and like actually ends up helping her, like, and becomes its own thing. It's just great because it's just like, yeah, it's a puppet, but it's also it's Pate. You can't ignore Pate and how frustrated Delilah gets at Pate when she logically knows it's a puppet and it's just Laudna making the voice, but she just gets so frustrated at Laudna talking to this puppet constantly. It's this whole thing throughout the book. She just gets so frustrated over it, and it's great because there's nothing she can do about it.
The puppet herself.
Yes, and it's beautiful. Laudna gets Delilah so riled up about Pate, the dead rat puppet, and it's great. And it's just like, what are you gonna do? You're stuck inside an undead woman's head. Like, you can't do much about it. You caused this to yourself, woman.
Other characters, I liked the baker, like the tiefling baker that just like is an awful businessman, but like makes up for it because people like him so much because he's so friendly that they come and shop. Like, I liked that a lot. I don't remember that character's name. But
he was mostly just referred to as the baker. Like, he was given a name, but he was just the baker.
So yeah, I like that character as well. Basically, no like real significance on the plot, but like, I did like that character a lot.
They're both good ones. I really liked Bella.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Her
Bella
name
really
is
good.
Belladonna, and she's 11. Thank you very much. She was giving Eloise vibes. I don't know if that was just me, but she kind of reminded me of Eloise, but in a good way.
Yeah, she's like so sassy and confident,
Mm-hmm.
and she was just fun. And like, finally, a real person has come to adopt Laudna. It was nice. There was a lot of nice moments. Um, Speaking of nice moments, what were the standout moments for you?
The moment towards the end with Bella and I'm going to call her the Inquisitor. Inquisitor? No.
Exemplar.
Exemplar. Thank you. Um, where it's the second encounter with the Exemplar, and Laudna has much more courage about her to kind of call out the Exemplar and the Exemplar's treatment of her. Even though it doesn't necessarily go in her favor, it's really a showcase of how she has come into her own. Like, she's just rescued this little girl from the deep depths of under a tree. For some reason, there was a whatever the not witch dryad. That's the word. You know, there was a dryad there, and all of this chaotic stuff. And she's exhausted and just ready to go take a nap, preferably a long rest. And the Exemplar shows up and is like, leave her be. And she's like, you know what? You're not a very nice person. You do nice things, but you don't have any humanity. Again, with the humanity thing. And that was a scene that really just sort of stood out because it was, granted, I just read it earlier today, but also it was just this whole moment of Laudna really being like, you know what? I'm a good person. No matter, like, you're judging me based on my outward appearance, and I just saved this child from dead, literally. Um, I'm not going to stop you from taking her back to the city because you're an objectively good person. And I have seen that about you. But I'm going to tell you to your face that you are not a kind person. And then Bella is like stands up with her and is like, yeah, I agree with the fun, spooky undead lady. And it's just this whole sweet moment of like Laudna standing up for herself and having someone support her in that. Even though Delilah the whole time was like, no, stop, what are you doing? Run away. We're like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to tell this person that they're not a nice person. And then walk away. So, yeah, that was a moment that stood out as kind of in her own journey for Laudna.
I mean, shout out to any scene that Bella was in.
Yeah.
I specifically liked the sneaking lesson. I thought that was really fun. This idea of like, I've been following you for weeks and you haven't seen me. Like, clearly you need help from this. Of like, yeah. So I liked that scene a lot. And then, of course, the sneaking also takes us to the bakery, and so
yeah,
that liking the baker adds to my liking of the sneaking lesson.
After the fact, Laudna liked to believe that the baker just let it happen.
Yeah. I loved that. As he understands the assignment is to pretend like he doesn't notice. And so, yeah, I liked that scene a lot.
10 out of 10 side character.
Yeah.
Yes. One of the scenes that stood out to me was also with Bella. It was after the scene that Emma described, just when she's saying goodbye to Bella and promises to stay away from anyone until she was certain the monster inside her wouldn't hurt anyone. And just like what a kick in the gut that scene was.
Yeah.
That one hurt my feelings a little bit.
Yours and mine both.
Yep. All right. Any dislikes?
All the previously mentioned dislikes are understandable, and I agree, but also I have no gripes of my own personally, and I just want more. Like, if we could get other character backstory books for Critical Role slash Bell's Hells of the same quality, I would be happy. Like, I want a whole collection. I want it all. Give it to me.
Yeah, as I've said before, I think my biggest dislike is that this is a prequel. And as such, can only get the character ready for session one. I would have liked a more pressing antagonist. I'm glad that that wasn't the exemplar, but like in terms of like actual conflict, it is really weird to me in this book that like really the dryad is the only like fight that happens in the book.
Yeah.
And yeah. And so I would have liked to again have some sort of more pressing threat or something throughout the book that like we were building up towards, because like there was definitely a like, I don't know, middle 40% of this book that I wasn't sure why I was reading. Like I just like I didn't understand. Like Laudna is aimless. There's no antagonist other than like, oh, the people in that village are mean, so we'll go to a new village once they find us. But like again, it's like that the lack of a antagonistic threat, I think, is my biggest dislike. But again, to Emma's point, if this is like the low bar for quality for these, I could not wait to see what these other books are. Like,
yeah.
Like again, I say all of this as like I did enjoy this book.
Like, I would love for the next book to be literally Imogen's backstory up until she meets Laudna. Because we meet Imogen at the end of this story in the last like 5-8 pages. However many, not very many pages. I would love to see Imogen's, backstory, because she also has a fascinating backstory that we get a lot more of in campaign throughout, because it's drives a lot of the campaign storyline. But I would love to see like her perspective of it written down in a not information heavy, dense D&D
in a not wiki kind of way.
Yeah, in a not wiki fan Wikipedia kind of format.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. With one slight edit of, I would like Laudna and Imogen to have met earlier, and then had time with them together. I think that that was another big thing this book was missing.
Yeah,
was again knowing that they show up together for session one and they're on this mission to find this thing together. Like the fact that like Imogen is like literally just in the epilogue.
Yeah.
I definitely wished that would have been the latter third of the book, would have been them together. I think that would have been really interesting as well. Janine, any dislikes from you?
I don't have any dislikes. I'm just thinking about what you just said. Because, well, I would have loved to have more Laura Bailey. Feel like that also changes like the whole story arc.
I was just thinking the same thing. It shifts who the focus is. It takes the focus away from Laudna in a way.
Well, not that, just that I think it changes the theme and the climax. Like, it would have been telling a completely different story if we had had that.
I mean, yeah, I definitely agree. There would have been some major restructuring that would have had to happen for that to work out and feel better. And I feel like this is a struggle. I was talking to some people about this over the weekend, of the idea of like being critical because of what something is versus being critical because of what you want it to be. And again, like I feel like I'm coming at it here as being critical because I wanted it to be this other thing. And so for me, like saying, "Oh, it's gonna all be different," I'm like, "Okay, let's go." Like, like that's not a negative for me, but like I understand for other people that would be. And so.
All right. Well, speaking of the story that it tells, this obviously deals with the theme of death. What are your thoughts on how that is handled through the story?
The things that keeps popping back up is like people's fear of death, seen through people's fear of Laudna. Like, death is very much a normal, natural thing, as much as we hate it to be normal and just part of the universe. But because we don't know a lot about like what happens on the other side, so to speak, there's just social taboos about it, and so like that plays out a lot in the book, as because Laudna is this undead, this is, you know, dead thing brought back to life. People are just inherently scared of her, even though she's like, I just want to like help your little village. I want to repair all of your things for you, and like I want to help you. And they're just like, no, get out of here. You're weird and spooky and scary, and you're gonna do only bad things, and we're gonna spread rumors about a witch. And that's like how we've handled, you know, death for hundreds of thousands of years. And it's a refreshing look on how we can approach quote unquote taboo subjects like that in much different ways than we as a society and as a whole are already doing. Because maybe it's just a misunderstood little thing in the corner that we can try to reframe in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This kind of reminded me of when we were talking about Prayer for the Crown Shy, or Psalm for the Wild Built. I don't like obviously talked about both of those, or read through both of those, but like I guess it was like they're in a book club for a Psalm. This idea of like who has the most humanity in this book? It's the robot. And I kind of liked that here of like this book is about this undead thing learning to find its humanity. And like what like Laudna coming to learn of like in death, in this immortal life, like to the point that she literally gets confronted by like this question of like, why do you keep living? And I thought that was a really cool idea of like, you've been like literally given this second chance. Sure, there's this evil person in your head, but like you've literally been given this second chance. How are you going to use it? What is your motivation? Are you going to hoard your immortality, or are you going to like use it to help people? Yeah, and I liked that a lot. I thought that was a cool way of like taking on this theme again of like having like an undead NPC, or not, an undead PC. There we go. And then kind of like actually having them deal with some of that like existential crisis that would come from that.
My favorite sequence from the novel is actually quite early on, when Laudna is kind of spying on this old orc woman, and like, orc woman is not aware of Laudna, but Laudna is just like kind of there, but has come to like kind of care for the old orc woman in a sense, and just like, I don't know, find comfort in being near someone, I guess. But then she dies, and I think kind of the explanation of the woman dying and how Laudna deals with it was just so very real. And I think approaches it in a way that death is not something that we need to be afraid of. But it's something that everybody goes through at some point. And I think I was so struck by how it really described exactly what it's like to see someone after they've died, that you know that it's them, but it's not really them at the same time. And and I think the way that Laudna grieves after that is the same way that a lot of people deal with grief, I think, and that is through like finding the tasks. Like, you're grieving, but somebody has to do the dishes. So and yeah, I don't know. I liked that whole series of scenes just because it felt just very real. And I think usually death in fiction is like a lot more dramatic and things, and it was not. She just like
Heartbreaking.
passed in her sleep
and slow and quiet.
And yeah, just having to deal with the grief and carry on with day-to-day life at the same time. All right. I have a quote.
Shocked.
People hey. People so often misunderstand the idea of home. They think it is passive, a thing to be chosen. Sometimes it is the reverse. A person or a place that calls, and you can't help but answer. Number 1, found it very rude that the best quote of this book is from Delilah. And number 2, what are your thoughts on the theme of home?
Yeah, this is super cool. I love this, and I do love the found family that we get between Laudna and Delilah, of like, hey, we hate each other, but like I can't like make a pact with anyone else, and you can't get me out of your head. So here we are.
It's the disliked aunt, disliked niece, but we're stuck with each other kind of vibe. Like, well, exactly. We're here.
And yeah, I liked this quote a lot. I don't remember if I had looked at the show notes, but I remember like going at this, like seeing this quote and being like, oh, we'll definitely talk about this. Um, and yeah, I think this is super interesting, and I think it's very cool. It kind of reminds me of Bob Goff has a quote that I really like of quality time happens in quantity time. And this kind of hit that same vibe for me of like, yeah, you can spend all of your time trying to make home, but like sometimes home is just the place or the family that calls to you, and you can't help but want to be there. And I love that a lot as like the found family theme of like it doesn't have to be your biology, it doesn't have to be like the people that you went to school with, like your home can just be that place that you want to be.
And even to an extent of like temporary homes of like Laudna was chased out of quite a few places over the course of however many years this book takes place, which is like at least 15, 10 for sure. I'm guessing between 15 and 20 years, roughly, give or take. Um, like she's been chased out of several places, but like the elderly orc woman, like she hung out on the outskirts of that woman's life for several months, a good chunk of time, and that was like, even though she knew at some point she would have to leave, like she kind of made it a co-living home of her own for the time that she had there. And just like, I mean, I also go back to Pate as like fan family. Like Pate is a weird puppet, but it helped fill that void to an extent of like having a family member she wanted to be around and wanted to have conversations with in those moments of being unable to connect with other real people, um, who just didn't want to have anything to do with her. Um, but then found family, even, and home can show up where you least expect it. Like with Bella, who's just like, "Nah, you're my home now. You're my best friend," and like, there's nothing you can say to convince me otherwise. Um, and it really does show up in unexpected places. And I thought that was a very nice touch to really add into. I mean, Laudna's whole thing is she just wants friends, which in turn kind of plays into she just wants a found family, which of course we see her get later on with Bell's Hells. But it's still like heartbreaking because she wants this thing of home that for so many in the world she exists in, it's hard for her to obtain because there's so much against her.
I think, yeah, this quote just encapsulates the journey of this novel so well in, I don't know, just a really beautiful way. And again, one of Delilah's rare moments of like actual wisdom. Um, but yeah, I think Laudna is spending this whole time looking for a place that she can stay and call home. Um, then it turns out that all along she was looking for a person instead. Um,
That person's name is Imogen.
Yeah.
and yeah, I agree with what you guys have been saying that like it's really hard to like force that feeling of home.
Mhm.
It's just like one of those you know it when you find it type things. Um, just those places and those people that you're completely comfortable around and that aren't scared by your fun spookiness. Any other themes that stood out to you?
Fun wandering, and eventually you'll find where you're meant to be.
I don't necessarily have anything else too specific, other than why no blasting? Blasting should have been a theme.
Eldritch
obviously
Blast.
Yeah. There's kind of this. I don't know if this is a theme as much of this idea of like who is a good person, like, and this idea of like again like the exemplar as like the prime candidate of like, are they a good person because they're doing good things, or is this just Delilah trying to color and like gaslight Laudna into not trusting this person who is doing good things? Like,
yeah.
But it does tie in with a quote that I have, but yeah, which I can go ahead and share. So this is the one I took a picture of so that I would remember it. And so this again is Delilah talking, having all the good quotes.
The drama.
Yeah. A villain isn't always evil. A villain is someone in opposition of the heroes. And what are heroes but the ones who write the story? To a hunter, their favorite hound is nothing short of a beloved legend. But a fox, however, to a fox, however, to a vixen who just lost her renard in its jaws, the same hound is a villain, a monster. And so I liked that quote a lot. And again, I feel like that kind of sets the tone for how Delilah is going to try to get Laudna to see the world. And I don't necessarily think she fully succeeds in that, but I feel like this is kind of like a bit of like Delilah's manipulation thesis statement for where she's trying to get.
Her elevator pitch.
Yes, exactly. So I'm not saying you be a monster, but I'm saying just a matter of perspective. So maybe we just go cause some light arson. Like,
potato.
Any quotes you have to share, Emma, or anything else that stood out?
Mostly because it's a cute moment. So Bella and Laudna are unintentionally spying on Bella's sister. And it goes, "Can you read lips?" asked Bella. "No. Can you?" "I'm 11. Laudna stared at her for a moment, impressed. She hadn't been aware that it was possible to use a number as both a defense of one's abilities and an attack on someone else's assumptions, let alone do it so very deftly. And I just laughed a whole lot at that moment of just because it's another little moment of Laudna rediscovering how the world works. Of like, yes, someone who's 11 years old can do a lot of things, but you also just shouldn't assume. Like, it was just this great little moment, yet another moment of Laudna, still even towards the end of the book, rediscovering how the world works, how to interact with people, how people interact with her. And it was just a sweet little moment. And I have several others that I could. Shanine, you would hate me because I dog-eared the corners of all of my pages that I had stuff for. but a lot of them have things that we've mentioned already. Other than my other favorite one, which is over the next few weeks, Tourist Fields found itself haunted by altruism. No sooner did something break than it would be shoddily, the local builders noted, with resentment, repaired. The anonymous kindness would have gone unremarked upon if the boards used didn't bear deep gashes as though raked by claws, and the new awnings weren't ominously tasseled with chips of bone. Like, it's, the paragraph goes on, but it's just this great little moment of Laudna just trying to help and being of assistance, but her own little art style and like touches of personality aren't really appreciated because everyone else sees them as horrifying or very against OSHA violations,
Yeah.
if you will. So it's like, she's just like, I just want to help. I just want to be nice. And everyone's like, why is there suddenly like a bone made wind chime on my porch? This is horrifying. And things. And it's just this a touch of character flavor of like delight in someone not really understanding that the world isn't entirely like her, but that's not going to stop her from being herself anyway.
All right. Final thought.
Loved it overall. Some valid dislikes slash critiques, but also like for what it is, it's a great book, and I want more in this like collection overall. And I would recommend it to other Critical Role fans.
I'll say, as one of my few physical books that I've done for this book club in quite a while, I really wish I would have done the audiobook.
You always can. There's nothing stopping you.
Well, the library didn't have it, so the library
maybe that's
was stopping
me.
you. Yes, I do feel like one of the places that like I struggled with this book was momentum. Of like, I don't know, like I would have finished this book eventually, but it definitely would not have been as timely if we did not have the crunch of like it was yesterday and I needed to read 80 pages. And again, part of that I think was just for me with the pacing and other stuff going on, but like that was definitely a place that I struggled with this book. And I do think having the momentum of an audiobook would have helped me a bit more. That being said, again, I did generally enjoy this book. I do feel like I'm probably the most down on this from the three of us. But overall, I do think it was a good book.
Yes, after this discussion, I feel like I can 100% recommend the audiobook as the way to go for this one. If nothing else, you get Robbie Damon talking at you for like 12 hours and no complaints. Yeah, I don't know. It was good. It was enjoyable. Weirdly, with all of like the spooky aesthetic, I feel like this still falls within like the cozy fantasy realm.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a like large scale story at all. It's just Laudna finding a home, and it was good. It was a good read. A good fall read, I think.
Yep.
All right. We will be taking a break from book club for December. So stay tuned for when we will pick back up.
I'll add to that just as a general announcement. December will probably be spotty. Just welcome to holidays and all of that stuff. So join the Discord, keep an eye out for announcements and stuff like that. But yeah, December as a whole will probably be spotty.
We are First Geek 411 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Join our Discord server or shoot us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. Check out our Redbubble store, watch live on our Twitch, and find all our videos over on YouTube. I am Coot and Howl Tales, TALES, on Instagram and Threads.
And I am not prepared with an I in the prepared on Instagram and Blue Sky. I am technically on Twitter, but I don't use it, which is why I'm saying Blue Sky instead, because I am there more. And pretty much everything else.
I am Huma Whittle around the internet, primarily Instagram, Threads, and Discord.
Eldridge Blair.
Yeah, I was like, cast some spells.